Captain Eric Thorne, a seasoned soldier of the Earth Federation, stood at the foot of Prince Caro's opulent deathbed. The room, adorned with alien tapestries and faintly glowing crystalline fixtures, was eerily quiet, save for the labored breaths of the dying Varnoxian ruler. Cairo, known for his ruthlessness and cunning, had summoned Eric in what was clearly the last hours of his reign. "Captain Thorne," Cairo rasped, his voice barely audible yet commanding, "I've watched you from afar, a human soldier who showed mercy, even in the heat of war." Eric's brows furrowed. It was surreal to hear praise from a man who had been an enemy just months prior. "Your Highness, I only did my duty." Cairo gave a weak laugh which turned into a violent cough. "Duty, yes, that is why you are here. I have a final request, and you are the only one I trust to fulfill it." Eric braced himself, unsure what to expect. "I'm listening." Cairo's gaze shifted to the shadows of the room. From them emerged a woman, Princess Alinra. Known across the galaxy for her sharp mind, but often ridiculed for her unconventional appearance, she carried herself with a quiet dignity. Her features were angular and asymmetric, her skin textured with patterns unique to her lineage. "My sister," Cairo said, gesturing weakly toward her. "She will inherit my throne, but she is vulnerable. Without me, the vultures will descend." Alinra stood silently, her gaze steady but tinged with sorrow. "I ask you, Captain Thorne," Cairo continued, his voice faltering, "to marry her, protect her, stand by her side, and ensure this empire does not fall to chaos." Eric's breath hitched. He glanced at Alinra, who met his gaze with a calm intensity. The weight of the request pressed down on him. This wasn't just a marriage, it was a political alliance, a promise to stabilize a fractured empire. Cairo's voice grew weaker. "Promise me, Thorne, that you will protect her." Eric swallowed hard, his sense of duty overriding his doubts. "I promise." With a faint smile of relief, Cairo exhaled his last breath, his grip on life slipping away. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment settling heavily on Eric and Alinra. News of Prince Cairo's deathbed request spread through the galaxy like wildfire, igniting debates and controversy. When the Galactic Council convened to discuss the implications, the chamber buzzed with tension. Representatives from dozens of star systems gathered, their holographic projections flickering across the vast hall. Councillor Thraxus, a reptilian being with gleaming scales, spoke first, his tone sharp. "A human soldier marrying the Varnoxian princess? This is an insult to the traditions of their empire." Councillor Jenna, a human diplomat, countered, "This union could stabilize one of the most volatile regions in the galaxy. It's a chance for peace." The chamber erupted into murmurs, with opinions divided. At the center of the room stood Eric and Alinra, their presence a quiet defiance against the storm of criticism. Eric, clad in his Earth Federation uniform, stood tall, while Alinra maintained her regal composure. Captain Thorne, the council president, a towering Tarlian with shimmering blue skin, addressed him directly. "You have been thrust into a unique position. Do you understand the gravity of this union?" Eric nodded. "I do. This isn't just about fulfilling a promise. It's about protecting an empire and ensuring a future where our worlds can coexist." "And you, Princess Alinra," the president turned to her, "what is your view on this arrangement?" Alinra stepped forward, her voice calm but commanding. "My brother's final wish was for unity, not division. Captain Thorne has shown courage and honor in accepting this responsibility. Together we will uphold the stability of Varnax." Her words silenced the murmurs, the assembly struck by her poise. The president regarded them both for a long moment before speaking. "The council will observe this union closely. It is a gamble, but one with the potential to shape the future of this galaxy." As the meeting adjourned, Eric and Alinra exited the chamber, the weight of countless eyes following them. Once outside, Eric turned to her. "You handled that well." "So did you," she replied, her tone softer. "We may not have chosen this, but we have a chance to make it work." Eric nodded, respect growing for the woman who now stood as his partner in this unexpected alliance. The path ahead would be treacherous, but together they were determined to navigate it. The days following the council session were a whirlwind of preparations and political maneuvering. The galaxy watched intently as Captain Eric Thorne and Princess Alinra navigated their sudden partnership. Both understood the stakes. Their union was more than personal. It was a fragile bridge between the human-led Earth Federation and the Varnoxian Empire. a once feared regime now teetering on the brink of collapse. Eric found himself drawn to the quieter corners of the royal palace, a place filled with bioluminescent gardens and alien architecture that seemed alive. It was in one such garden, beneath the pale glow of Varnax's twin moons, that he found Alinra. She was seated on a stone bench, her posture poised, her attention on a small hollow scroll in her hands. The light from the scroll illuminated her sharp features, casting them in a softer glow. "You find time to read amidst all this chaos?" Eric asked as he approached. Alinra glanced up, her expression neutral but not unkind. "It helps me think. This," she held up the scroll, "is a historical account of the last great political alliance in our empire. It ended poorly." Eric sat down beside her, a respectful distance away. "Not the most reassuring choice of reading material. It's a cautionary tale," she replied, her tone matter-of-fact. "I intend to learn from their mistakes." Eric studied her for a moment. "You're nothing like what I expected." Alinra arched a brow. "And what did you expect, Captain Thorne?" He hesitated before answering honestly. "Someone colder, harsher. The stories about you, they don't do you justice." She laughed softly, a sound both genuine and tinged with sadness. "Stories are powerful tools. My brother used them to control perceptions of me. To many, I'm a monster or a pawn. Few have cared to see the truth." Eric's gaze softened. "Well, I'm here to see it." Alinra looked at him, her sharp eyes searching his face for any sign of insincerity. Finding none, she gave him a small, genuine smile. "Then perhaps this union won't be as impossible as it seems." While Eric and Alinra began to understand each other, forces within the Varnaxian Empire conspired to disrupt their fragile alliance. General Dravak, a former confidant of Prince Kiro, had no intention of allowing a human to influence the empire, much less marry into its royal family. Dravak, a towering figure with scarred skin and an aura of authority, convened a secret meeting with his most loyal supporters in the shadowed depths of the capital city. "This marriage is an insult to our traditions," Dravak growled, his voice echoing in the dimly lit chamber. "Kairo's death has left a vacuum, and this human seeks to fill it." One of his subordinates, a wiry officer named Relik, hesitated. "But the people? They seem curious. Alinra's visibility is growing. She's not as hated as she once was." "Curiosity is fleeting," Dravak snapped. "Fear is enduring. We will remind them of what the Empire stood for." Unaware of the growing threat, Eric and Alinra attended a formal gathering in the palace's grand hall. It was their first public appearance as a couple, and the room was filled with dignitaries from across the Empire and beyond. Eric, dressed in a ceremonial uniform blending human and Varnaxian designs, felt the weight of countless eyes on him. Alinra, beside him in a flowing gown of iridescent fabric, exuded quiet strength despite the murmurs that followed their every step. As they mingled, Eric noticed subtle shifts in the crowd's demeanor. Some nobles approached with cautious respect, their questions probing but not hostile. Others avoided them entirely, their disdain barely concealed. It was Alinra who broke the tension, addressing the assembly with a speech that silenced the room. "For too long, the Varnaxian Empire has been ruled by fear and division. My brother's reign, while powerful, left scars that will take generations to heal. But this, our union, represents a new chapter, a chance for unity, for strength through understanding." Her words, eloquent and heartfelt, stirred a ripple of applause. Eric added, "I didn't come here to impose human values on this empire. I came because I believe in what Alinra stands for. Together, we can build something stronger." As the applause grew, General Dravak, hidden among the crowd, narrowed his eyes. His plans would need to accelerate. Later that night, as Eric and Alinra retired to the private wing of the palace, he turned to her. "You were incredible out there." Alinra gave him a faint smile. "I've spent my life being underestimated. It's become my greatest strength." Eric chuckled. "Then I'd say we're a pretty good team." For the first time, Alinra's smile reached her eyes. "Yes, Captain Thorne, I believe we are." The fragile stability in the Varnaxian Empire shattered just days after the grand gathering. General Dravak, emboldened by his secret alliance of discontented nobles and military officers, launched his coup under the cover of darkness. His forces, equipped with advanced weaponry and intimate knowledge of the palace's defenses, struck swiftly. Eric was jolted awake by the sound of explosions and the sharp crack of blaster fire outside his quarters. Years of military experience snapped him into action as he grabbed his sidearm and raced to Alinra's chambers. He found her already awake, her expression composed despite the chaos outside. "Dravak," she said simply, as if naming a storm. "I figured," Eric replied grimly, scanning the room. "We need to get you somewhere safe." "No," Alinra said, her voice firm. "If I run, it will validate everything he claims, that I am weak, unfit to rule. We stand and fight." Eric hesitated, his protective instincts clashing with her resolve. Finally, he nodded. "Then let's make sure we fight smart." The palace guards, though caught off guard, rallied under Eric and Alinra's leadership. Eric quickly organized defensive lines while Alinra sent messages to loyal factions, calling for reinforcements. In the throne room, the battle reached its peak as Dravak himself stormed in, his presence commanding and his soldiers relentless. He sneered as he confronted Alinra and Eric. "This empire deserves a true leader, not a human puppet and a weak princess." Alinra stepped forward, her voice sharp. "You claim strength, Dravak, yet you cower behind violence and lies. You're no leader. You're a coward." Dravak snarled and lunged at her, but Eric intercepted him, their clash erupting into a brutal fight. Dravak, larger and stronger, fought with ruthless precision, but Eric's training and quick reflexes kept him in the fight. As Eric battled Dravak, Alinra seized the moment to rally the guards. "This is our empire," she shouted, her voice ringing out. "Do not let it fall to tyranny again." Her words ignited the defenders, who surged forward with renewed determination. Dravak's forces began to falter, their cohesion breaking under the combined strength of the palace guards and reinforcements arriving from the city. The battle raged for hours, the palace transforming into a chaotic war zone. Eric and Alinra moved as a unit, their trust in each other solidified by the heat of combat. At last, with a decisive strike, Eric disarmed Dravak, forcing him to his knees. The general glared at them, defiant even in defeat. "This changes nothing," he spat. "You'll never command their loyalty." Alinra stepped forward, her voice calm but cutting. "You're wrong. They don't follow out of fear. They follow because they believe in what we can achieve together." The loyal guards seized Dravak and his remaining officers, securing them in the palace dungeons. The coup had been quelled, but the cost was evident. The palace was scarred, and the people's trust in their leadership hung in the balance. That evening, as the fires were extinguished and the wounded tended to, Eric and Alinra stood on a balcony overlooking the battered capital. The city, though shaken, was still standing, its lights flickering like embers of hope. "You saved us," Alinra said quietly. Eric shook his head. "We saved each other." She turned to him, her expression softening. "This could have been the end. Instead, it feels like a beginning." Eric smiled faintly. "It's not over yet, but we've shown them we're stronger together." For the first time, Alinra allowed herself a moment of vulnerability, leaning slightly toward him. "Thank you, Eric, for standing by me when you didn't have to." He met her gaze, the weight of their shared journey reflected in his eyes. "You're not alone in this, Alinra. Not anymore." As the city slowly settled into an uneasy peace, Eric and Alinra knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but they also knew that together they could face whatever came next and build a future worth fighting for. In the aftermath of the failed coup, the Varnaxian Empire stood at a crossroads. The scars of the battle were visible everywhere, from the damaged palace walls to the lingering fear in the eyes of the people. Rebuilding the empire was not just about repairing structures, it was about restoring faith. Eric and Alinra took immediate action. They began holding public assemblies across the capital, inviting citizens to voice their concerns and share their hopes. It was a bold move, one that risked exposing them to criticism, but both knew it was essential to demonstrate their commitment to the people. Standing before a crowded square, Alinra addressed her subjects with a steady voice. "For too long, this empire has been ruled by fear. My brother's reign, while powerful, left wounds that have not yet healed. I will not repeat his mistakes." Eric stood beside her, his human presence a curiosity to many in the crowd. "I come here not as an outsider looking to impose change," he said. "I come as someone who believes in this empire's potential. Together, we can rebuild, stronger and united." The crowd's reaction was mixed. Some murmured approval. Others remained skeptical. But as the assemblies continued and the royal pair's sincerity became evident, the tide began to turn. Citizens who had once doubted Alinra's capabilities started to see her strength and resilience. Eric's humility and willingness to adapt to Varnaxian culture further endeared him to the populace. Behind the scenes, Eric and Alinra worked tirelessly to stabilize the government. They established new advisory councils, inviting representatives from various regions and social strata to participate in decision-making. This move, radical for the traditionally hierarchical Varnaxian system, signaled a break from the oppressive past. Late one evening, after hours of strategizing, Eric found Alinra in the palace library, poring over ancient texts. She looked up as he entered, exhaustion etched on her face. "You should rest," he said, concern in his voice. "I can't," she replied. "There's so much to do and every moment feels critical." He sat across from her, his tone gentle but firm. "You don't have to do it all alone. That's the point of this partnership." For a moment, her guarded demeanor softened. "I'm not used to relying on anyone. But with you, it feels different." Eric gave her a small smile. "Good, because we're in this together." The progress on Varnax had not gone unnoticed by the Galactic Council. Impressed by the reports of stability and reform, they invited Eric and Alinra to present their vision for the Empire's future at the annual Galactic Summit. The invitation was both an opportunity and a challenge, a chance to solidify their legitimacy, but also a test of their resolve. The summit, held in the neutral star system of Alarion, was a grand affair. Representatives from countless species gathered in a towering crystalline hall, its walls shimmering with refracted light. Eric and Alinra entered the chamber together, their presence commanding attention. The council president, a stately being named Vorlith, addressed them. "Princess Alinra, Captain Thorn, your efforts have sparked significant debate within this body. We are eager to hear your vision." Alinra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the weight of countless eyes upon her. "The Varnaxian Empire is at a turning point. For centuries, we ruled through fear and force. That era is over. My brother's final wish was for stability, and I intend to honor that by building an empire based on trust, cooperation, and unity." Eric followed, his tone measured but impassioned. "This alliance between human and Varnaxian is unprecedented, but it's also proof that our differences can make us stronger. The galaxy is watching us, and we aim to show that change is possible, even in the face of deep divisions." The chamber buzzed with whispers. Some council members nodded in approval, while others remained skeptical. One counselor, a stern, insectoid figure named Karas, leaned forward. "Your words are bold, but boldness alone cannot reshape a galaxy. What guarantees do you offer that your reforms will succeed?" Eric exchanged a glance with Alinra before answering. "There are no guarantees, but every step we take is a step toward progress. We're not here to promise perfection. We're here to prove that we're willing to do the work." Alinra added, "The changes we've implemented on Varnax are already showing results. We've opened new channels for citizen involvement, dismantled oppressive systems, and prioritized transparency. These aren't just words, they're actions." The council deliberated for what felt like hours before Vorlith finally spoke. "Your efforts are commendable, and your vision aligns with the principles of this council. We will monitor your progress closely and offer our support as needed." The chamber erupted into applause, a mixture of genuine approval and cautious optimism. That evening, Eric and Alinra stood on the balcony of their quarters, overlooking the shimmering city of Alarion. The stars above seemed brighter, a reflection of the hope they carried. "We did it," Alinra said, her voice filled with quiet pride. Eric nodded. "It's a good step. But there's still a long road ahead." She turned to him, her gaze steady. "Then we walk it together." He smiled, the bond between them stronger than ever. Always. As they stood beneath the vast expanse of the galaxy, they knew the challenges weren't over. But for the first time, they felt ready to face them, together. Just when Eric and Alinra began to see the fruits of their hard work, a dark shadow fell over their efforts. General Dravak, imprisoned after his failed coup, had used his influence from behind bars to orchestrate one final act of defiance, a coordinated rebellion from the fringes of the Empire. Loyalist factions sympathetic to his cause had armed themselves and prepared to strike at the capital. The first signs of trouble came in the form of intercepted communications. Eric, now trusted as both Alinra's partner and the commander of her reformed military, pored over the intelligence reports with growing concern. "He's still pulling strings," Eric said grimly, turning to Alinra in their war room. "Dravak's loyalists are gathering in the outer territories. They're planning to march on the capital." Alinra's expression was resolute, though her eyes betrayed a flicker of wariness. "We cannot let them undermine everything we've built." Eric nodded. "We need to act fast. If they reach the capital, we'll be outnumbered." Mobilizing their forces, Eric and Alinra planned a preemptive strike to cut off the rebellion before it could gain momentum. Their strategy was bold. They would lead a small, elite strike force directly into the heart of the rebel encampment, disrupting their leadership and scattering their forces. The mission began under the cover of darkness, with Eric and Alinra joining their troops on the front lines. The rebel camp, hidden within a dense asteroid field, was heavily fortified. Navigating the treacherous terrain required precision and nerves of steel. As they infiltrated the camp, the tension was palpable. Eric's voice came through the comms, steady and calm. "Team Alpha, hold your position. Team Bravo, prepare to breach." The operation was swift and brutal. Eric led the charge, his tactical brilliance on full display as he coordinated attacks and neutralized threats. Alinra, wielding a ceremonial blade that had once belonged to her brother, fought beside him with fierce determination, her leadership inspiring their troops. In the chaos of the battle, Eric confronted Dravak, who had escaped his imprisonment and taken command of the rebel forces. The two clashed in a fierce fight, their blades sparking as they exchanged blows. "You don't belong here, human," Dravak snarled, his voice dripping with venom. "This empire will never accept you." Eric dodged a strike, his movements fluid and precise. "This empire doesn't need your acceptance, it needs a future." With a final decisive move, Eric disarmed Dravak and pinned him to the ground. "It's over," he said, his voice firm. Dravak sneered but said nothing, as loyalist guards took him into custody. The remaining rebels, leaderless and disorganized, surrendered soon after. The victory over the rebellion marked a turning point for the Varnaxian Empire. With Dravak and his loyalists defeated, the remaining opposition crumbled, allowing Eric and Alinra to focus on the long road of rebuilding. In the weeks that followed, they worked tirelessly to restore order. Alinra addressed her people, her speeches filled with hope and determination. "We have faced challenges that could have torn us apart," she declared during a public address in the capital, "but together we have proven that unity is stronger than fear." Eric, standing beside her, added, "This is more than a victory, it's a new beginning. One where every citizen has a voice, and every world has a future." The crowd erupted into cheers, their faith in their leaders renewed. The Galactic Council, impressed by their progress, extended formal recognition of the Varnaxian Empire's reforms. The Empire, once feared and isolated, became a symbol of resilience and cooperation. As Eric and Alinra stood before the Council during a ceremonial acknowledgement, President Vorlith addressed them. "You have achieved what many thought impossible. Your union, born of necessity, has become a beacon of hope for the galaxy." The applause that followed was thunderous, a testament to their efforts and sacrifices. That evening, Eric and Alinra returned to the palace. The capital city was alight with celebration, its streets filled with citizens rejoicing in their newfound unity. On the balcony overlooking the festivities, they shared a quiet moment. "We've come a long way," Eric said, his voice tinged with pride. Alinra smiled, her gaze softening as she looked at him. "And we still have further to go, but for the first time, I believe we'll get there." Eric reached for her hand, their fingers intertwining. "We will, together." As the twin moons of Varnax cast their glow over the city, Eric and Alinra stood side by side, their partnership a symbol of a brighter future. Their journey, marked by trials and triumphs, had not only saved an empire but also redefined what it meant to lead, with courage, trust, and an unshakable bond. Together, they had forged a legacy that would inspire generations to come.